Welcome back to our Agents of Change series, where together with executives from some of the UK's biggest and fastest scaling brands, we're tackling the issues keeping business leaders up at night. Today, we're going to be addressing the potential of digital transformation for those unafraid of being bold or challenging the status quo. My guests today know more than a little bit about growth, as their 550-strong team is leading the way, even earning a recent spot on the Financial Times' fastest-growing companies list for achieving remarkable scale. I'm delighted to welcome Steve McGill, CEO, and Simon Bradbury, Group CTO at McGill and Partners, to the show. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about McGill and Partners?
McGill and Partners, as you kindly reference, is the fastest growing global specialty brokerage firm in the world. It's an insurance and reinsurance broker. And it was founded 20 years actually after Salesforce was founded. And it was just like Salesforce in a way, 4 colleagues with a concept in 2019 who brought to life a business that was based on the concept of embracing acquisition at scale purely of talent, embracing teamwork, and embracing technology in an industry that has been very traditional. And today has, as you referenced, over 550 colleagues in the firm. We're in 10 offices and we're $200 million plus of revenue, and we have a client list that is the envy of our competitors.
That sounds amazing. Tell me a little bit about how you are being disruptors.
I like the Salesforce term of trailblazers because I think that's what we are, and that's the way we think, both in the way we interact with some of the most sophisticated clients in the world, and more importantly, how we think about our colleagues, because the assets of our firm are the people in it. And the most important thing to us is to have the ability to attract world-class talent into our organization. And so what we developed was a colleague value proposition called the Contract of Trust, which was, in our view, the most comprehensive, not only in our industry and not only in financial services generally, in virtually any company anywhere in the world. And it's got incredible industry-leading benefits, both in terms of maternity leave, 12 months fully paid, sabbaticals fully paid, 6 weeks every 5 years, flexible working, and more. And so, I think if we're able to both have best-in-class talent, we can go out and, as we are, win against some of the biggest competitors in our space in the world.
I think when you talk about disruption and being trailblazers, obviously we work in a very traditional industry. The Lloyd's market's been around for hundreds of years. And I guess over the more recent years, there's been a certain type of person that would be attracted into that industry, and the industry needs to become more diverse, and it's making lots of headway, but it's still plenty to do. It's allowed us, from a fresh piece of paper, to really focus in on that and actually build out differently. So where there might be, to the points that Steve just referenced, if you have parents who are juggling childcare and being able to work, our Contract of Trust allows us to go into that space and attract people that otherwise traditionally that talent's left out. And I think when you bring people in that are looking at problems completely differently, what they bring to the firm is completely unique. And what we found is a way to continually tap into that.
You've had an amazing growth trajectory. How are you driving this culture of innovation and growth at your company?
So the innovation, it's really interesting, and Steve and I talk about this all of the time. When I kind of meet with my peers and my contemporaries, the general challenge is always, how do you get stuff to kind of drip down from the top? How do you get investment of time, resource, cash? That's not a problem that I face or we face, and it's really quite interesting. So that kind of culture in that DNA or innovation inside of us it kind of floods down from the top. And if I need time with Steve, or if I kind of bowl into Steve's office, Steve, I've got a great idea. There's an open door. We're going to sit down. We're going to chat about that. It's not, oh, here comes a tech guy. He wants to spend some money. He wants to do something crazy. It's much more openness. It's the whole of the senior leadership team have embraced technology. So therefore, the innovation and how we're disrupting, and it's an easier starting point, and it just floods through. No ideas off the table. That kind of encouraging that inquisitive nature, which allows people then to, there's no fear of failure. It's fantastic.
You encourage that openness.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I think it's a really important aspect of our DNA, because if you think about the competition that we're up against, really high quality firms, and they serve 80% of the Fortune 2000 companies in the world. That's our sweet spot, and we're going after them. And the way I'd characterize it is we are a bit like special forces in our industry. So we need to be nimble, we need to be creative, we need to be fast moving, and most important of all, we need best-in-class talent with deep subject matter expertise. And the reality is that team, with the technology and the teamwork and the talent, enables us to go up against the biggest firms in the world for the most complex assignments and win.
And how much has AI been a part of these conversations? Obviously, AI is nothing new. It's been deployed in business since the 1950s. But since generative AI hit the scene, everyone's thinking about how they can leverage it in a different way. To what extent are you using AI in your company?
So we're using AI quite extensively. And we, like you said, we were using some features within AI before the generative boom, as we're now kind of calling it. For us, and again, it's such a unique position as a brand new business in 2019. We're not caught hamstrung with technical debt or with legacy type systems. So again, it's allowed us to really understand what are the opportunities for us, what is the status quo, and because of that, it allows us to really start cutting back to how do we want to use technology to address these problems. So rather than, again, having technology looking for problems, we've got problems, and it's allowed us to use generative AI to find information faster. It's allowed us to use robotics to automate where there's multiple points of putting the same data in. So rather than someone sitting there crashing on the keyboard 4 or 5 times, have we got technology that lets that happen much faster and once, to increase the accuracy of our data, to free up our people's time, which is obviously super important to us, let them focus on high value tasks. So we've kind of, again, we've implemented AI in pockets, but really from the very bottom of the business right the way through to our client-facing stuff.
So great. Give me an example of how you've freed up people's time in, say, one of the manual tasks that they're now being freed up from because of AI or generative AI.
As you'd imagine, we're in a very traditional business, which there's a lot of paperwork that moves around the market. There's a lot of documentation, accuracy. It's paperwork heavy. And that often means that you'd have someone in our firm would have to sit and collect data, put data into a particular system. And as the kind of the risk moves around the market, different data entry points take place, and somebody else goes in and rekeys that information. So we've created robotics that, once the information's been put in once, actually copies that data and then pre-populates different systems. So whereas before you'd have a member of the team who would have to do that 4 or 5 times, now they can do it once, check the accuracy, and then be really comfortable that then it just flows down. They make changes once and it happens multiple times.
And I suppose we're seeing AI shift now to agentic AI, where we're seeing an increased level of autonomy. Is that something that you're deploying in your business, and how are you deploying it, if so?
Again, going back to looking at our problem statements, how do those problem statements kind of present themselves to us? And then is there an opportunity to leverage new technology to go after that? I think from a technical point of view only, I mean, agentic AI is kind of mind-blowing. The possibilities are absolutely, ridiculous. So we're not going to do anything for the sake of it. We don't want to do AI just for doing AI's sake. But we've got some really complex problems. We work in a very complex industry. So we really do see that agentic AI in our evolution is a huge potential for us to exploit that.
I think I'd just add to what Simon was saying, that, we see the intersection of talent, teamwork, and technology bringing those together for us as a firm is a huge competitive advantage. And certainly for me personally, two things I'd say. One is we've got, with Simon and his technology team, best-in-class leadership in that space. So not only from my standpoint, do I rely heavily on what Simon and the team are saying, but for me, it's also a massive learning curve. And AI, we're right at the cutting edge of AI, and it is, for me, an incredible education. Part of it is to really understand how we can apply some of these cutting-edge AI capabilities to not only operationally drive our business, drive efficiencies, but actually grow our revenues and grow our business and serve our clients more effectively.
Well, actually, that brings me on to asking you, how do you actually measure the success of your digital transformation projects? What are your main criteria that you look at?
Measuring success for us is actually kind of the easier bit. So we set out at the very beginning with a very clear view of what success looks like and what the objectives are. And then ultimately, once you've delivered something, does it meet back to those, which makes the measuring success very easy. Where we focus most of our time and where the complexity lies is actually in their problem statements or the objective of what you want to achieve. Because I think what we've seen in the technical space, certainly in the last 3 or 4 years, is you don't want to set out in a real rigid way. You want to be really open-minded. You want to have a loose idea. You know what your problem is, but you want to have a loose idea of how you're going to tackle it. And I think the measuring of that, if you do that at the beginning, it makes it much easier. And you know immediately then if you've had success because you've achieved broadly what you set out to achieve. Now, it's not always a straight line, but the measuring it is relatively straightforward for us.
And do you have any final advice for our viewers on driving tech innovation in such a highly regulated industry as yours?
Well, I would say it is a highly regulated industry, but there are many parts of financial services where tech has been an incredible enabler to handling business in a highly regulated industry. And I think sometimes I get a sense in our industry that firms hide behind the fact it's highly regulated and you shouldn't embrace tech. We think very differently. We think it's the complete reverse. And the other thing I would say, and Simon kindly alluded to it, you have to set the tone right from the top. And you've got to embrace what's going on, you've got to understand what's going on, and you've got to make decisions that you think are going to help us as we build our business and achieve greatness in terms of what we're trying to do in serving clients, looking after our colleagues, and driving shareholder value.
Final question. What is next for your organisation?
Well, next, I'd start with that, and Simon, you can add to it, but the first 5 years has been an incredible journey to have built a firm the way we built it globally, have $200 million of revenue, navigated through a pandemic which took out the first 2 years of our business, and actually built a global business that is the fastest growing specialty firm in the world, is a real testament to the talent that we have in the organization. So what happens next with Chapter 2, which is the next 5 years? We're going to double down and treble down on our talent acquisition and continue to grow through best-in-class talent. We're going to reinforce teamwork in the organization, and we're going to really drive our technology agenda.
To add to what Steve just said there, I think it's very much more of the same, but we are ruthlessly committed to kind of not resting on our laurels. So 5 years in the tech world that's a long time. And already as we go into Chapter 2, we're re-innovating, we're making sure that we are staying on the curve or slightly ahead of the curve, which again, it continues to allow us to attract talent. We've got ridiculously talented technology people. I think that it is more of the same, but also making sure that we just continue to evolve.
And what do you think might be the biggest change you will see as a result of technology over the next 5 years in your business?
Oh, great question. I think you will see AI will start to play almost like a table stakes position. It will become the absolute norm. I think it will continue to make the industry and the world a slightly smaller place. People will be better connected. Data will flow much more freely. And I think you will see, again, firms like ours that are uniquely positioned. It will allow us to continue to really rapidly grow, but without having to kind of carry the baggage that would sometimes cause. So it allows us to do things in a super smart way, be able to service clients in a really smart way. So I think it's a really interesting time, and we're ready to really exploit that.
I would just add that I think it closes the competitive gap between us as a really small boutique business and the biggest firms in our industry, and it is going to be a huge competitive advantage for us as we embrace it, and we're going to take full advantage of the competitive advantage we see by combining technology, talent, and teamwork. We have an unbelievable future ahead of us, and I'm really proud to lead what is the most successful firm there has been in the last 50 years in our industry.
Well, wish you all the best with that, with those ambitious growth targets that you have. Steve and Simon, thank you so much for coming in today. Really appreciate it. Great to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that's a wrap for today, but we'll be back with our next episode soon on the future of work and how leaders can operationalize humans with AI. Look forward to seeing you then.